Hello, Law. I'd like to pose a question to you and the subscribers, and I love the YouTube channel. A pleasure to watch, and in particular the Q&A. And a question I wanted to hear about is the closeness of people to you and your readings, and how as a professional you would treat those readings without projecting, assuming, judging, as those things are inherent in our nature. So how does one interpret the cards without those things, and how do we separate those things from a real knowing?
Thank you so much for that question. The first thing I would like to say is the three things you brought up. One about, got to remember now, one about assumption, the other one about projection, and the third one is about judgment. So, and you said that they're inherent. Um, I would like to debate the idea that assumption and projection are inherent because I don't consider them to be so. They are learned experiences and they do hold a dynamic within them that can be very dangerous. So I prefer not to go with that. And you ask about being a professional reading for somebody close to you, but as a professional, I don't read for anybody close to me. If you were sitting opposite me, darling, and I was reading your cards, it was because even though we do know each other, we don't know each other's personal life all that terribly much. There are barriers that I come to that I won't jump over, and those barriers are to do with our mutual experience of tarot, so that in many instances a professional reader is going to end up a sort of a lonely person for the simple reason that we keep a lot of our sensations of um, the more effervescent aspects of our nature to ourselves, for the simple reason I don't want to get too close to you, because if I do get too close to you, that's it, that's all she wrote, we can't do any more. And I won't be able to have the objectivity of reading your cards. So over a period of years, I'm still reading for people that I read for 20 years ago, but in the meantime, they haven't been in my coffee circle, if you get my drift. If they get too far into my coffee circle, then out the door, on the train, on the bus, on your bike, off you go. So I'd like to bring up two situations that are a really good example in this instance. And one was two very close friends of mine. I'm going back 20 years now, both of whom are readers, by the way. And we were all gathered in the Byron region at my first tarot collective in that area. And these two people were reading for each other all the time. Did I watch them kind of go mad? Yes, and people do go mad because of the assumptions. The assumption is the thing that doesn't happen. Assumption is malingering. Yes, you're correct that we do judge all the time as a matter of nature, but the judgments are an instantaneous assessment. There was a book written fairly recently called The Tipping Point, an example in a person in America who was seeking to buy a painting that was supposedly worth millions of dollars. And they didn't have the capacity to understand or to know themselves whether or not this was valid. It was simply an investment. So they've hired people from Berkeley, and they've also hired professionals who are dealing with artwork is a fake or not. And this particular individual paid a lot of money over many, many months to find out if that was so. Towards the very end, when the deal was due to go through, because the person concerned was convinced that it was an original, a friend who was a lifetime connoisseur of artwork in Paris, cop plane, came across to Los Angeles, walked into the person's office, saw this interesting painting on the easel where it was being looked after, and said that's rubbish. First gut intuition said that was rubbish, and yes, it was a fake. So these things do matter, and we are talked into not necessarily, we are talked into assuming that certain people are a certain way, and as such, people get profiled. I would get profiled because of my tattooing. I would perhaps get profiled because of my piercings, etc. Whereas I can recall sitting opposite a woman who looked like she would probably bake scones for the local women's auxiliary council in the back of Whoop Whoop somewhere. And this particular person was in her 50s, bob of a haircut, not much to think about, plain clothing. And when I threw out the tarot, I'm looking at Tower and Death and 10 of Swords and 5 of Swords and 3 of Swords. And in the midst of all this is a 10 of Cups. And I'm going, how come there's so much drama going around you? Oh, by the way, there would have been a Justice card in there. There would be an Emperor card in there, very definitely. And if I do remember rightly, the Emperor card fell in the sphere of Binah on the Tree of Life, which is now called the Stargate, which has got an association with Saturn, which does have a lot to do with institutions. So I could have been judging this person by their appearance. I could be making assumptions, as you mentioned in your question, but there was something completely in juxtaposition between what I was seeing on the table and the person's face opposite me. And at the end of the reading, when we got to the question section, the person informs me, oh, they did have an American accent, by the way. The person informed me that they're a CIA operative. I've had dead shit looking people sitting opposite me, falling off the chair, looking like they ought to be really sitting on Swanson Street with a begging bowl, and the person concerned is a forensics cop who is in drag. Is that a good way to put it? Okay. No. Look, the answer is no. First of all, with family, with close friends, you as a reader are going to think that a certain card will represent a certain person. That's the immediate first tipping point thing that you're going to experience. And the bottom line is you'll make it up. You won't be sure. When it's a complete stranger, and I can't really explain this, but it's the truth. When it's a complete stranger or it's someone that I don't have in my coffee circle, I'm looking at those cards and I don't care if I'm right or wrong, because I'm there's something else happens and I go beneath the eye. This is very important, to get below the self. That's got to be experienced to be understood, but that's what happens. I stopped being Law de Angelis, and I'm not even the person sitting opposite me. I'm the third person in the room. I'm the unexpected ghost. I'm the story of the future that is yet to unfold in the present, which is, of course, ever unfolding present. We don't have any such thing as past, present, and future, which is for another video. But we are in an ever unfolding present, a cycle and season of present, so that when that person experiences the individual that would have shown up in their cards that would have made no sense on the day, and even the people I'm talking to are going to make assumptions. But that's their business. The exact opposite almost. It is not to make an assumption. It's to say it like you spay it, and that's a very big difference. One other example, there was this, you know who you are, except I love you. This pretty young blonde person sitting opposite me when I was living in Wilson's Creek. I look at this person and I go, this is a surfer girl. She lives on the north coast of New South Wales, probably around the beaches of Manly or Mona Vale. Has a bit of a swanky life. What am I doing seeing dumpsters and dead bodies that are crushed? What am I doing seeing murder? What am I doing seeing dealings with cops? What am I seeing? I just went for it. I said it all, one thing after another. At the end, I'm going, what am I doing? What am I looking at? Who are you? What are you? And they're an AMBO, and they work in the dead zone in the Darlinghurst area of Sydney, at that stage in their life, between around 11 p.m. at night and 3 p.m. in the morning. And that's every day for this person. And I gained something really sweet from this individual. They said to me, at the very moment death happens, something is in the eyes. something that is like